On June 6, 1944, the sea was rough along the French coast of Normandy. The tide was higher than expected, and the wind blew hard against the sandy beaches. In the early hours of the morning, ships emerged from the darkness. From the battered vessels sprang wave after wave of soldiers who were almost immediately cut down by German forces hunkered down along the shoreline. Those that weren't shot mostly drowned in the tumultuous waters. The dark skies were filled with the shadows of massive planes and gliders. They circled the beaches, which were lit up with machine gun fire, and in the heavy winds, pushed out their precious cargo. Soldiers pinned down by German artillery and bullets looked to the sky as jeeps suspended from multiple olive-drab parachutes descended towards them. They rushed to the tiny ancestors of the modern Jeep and rejoiced as they instantly started when they stomped on the ignition button mounted on the floor by the pedals. The lightweight 4x4s, shorter and skinnier than an OG Miata, sailed along the sandy ground and bounded over hills. Their gunners grabbed the .50 caliber machine guns mounted in front of the back seat and returned fire onto the Nazis that held the beach. The little Jeeps had turned the tide, and America stood tall and proud. How did the Jeep teach Europe what freedom was really about? Why are they now the wrong vehicle for every job? General Dwight D. Eisenhower referred to the Jeep as one of the tools that won World War II, and last year, U.S. News and World Report ranked the Jeep Wrangler as the worst subcompact SUV you could ever buy. Today on Past Gas, we're going to find out what the hell happened to the Jeep.
Past Gas Podcast. It's about cars, it's not about Fords.
This podcast is brought to you by Valvoline. You guys know that Valvoline was the first motor oil brand, making it the original motor oil? Since its founding over 150 years ago, Valvoline and its scientists have been innovating, creating, and reinventing formulas. I'm talking innovations like the first high mileage oil, the first racing oil, and the first synthetic blend oil. Valvoline is also the world's #1 supplier of EV battery fluids, offering tailored products to help extend vehicle range and efficiency. One of those products that I'm super excited about is Valvoline Extended Protection Full Synthetic Oil. It's Valvoline's newest formula and offers ultimate protection designed to extend the life of your engine. Valvoline Extended Protection is specially formulated with dual defense additive technology. I really like Valvoline oil. I've been using this specific oil in my car for the last month. It's running great. Doesn't matter what kind of car you have, Valvoline has the oil for you. I use it, I love it, and you should too. Thanks, Valvoline.
I feel like we're going to get a lot of backlash from this episode.
Yeah.
I just want to let everyone out there know that I've really enjoyed the past 6 years of being an automotive entertainer. And, you know, if this is the way we go out, this is the way we go out.
Hey, I mean, that wasn't us calling it the worst subcompact SUV. That was U.S. News and World Report.
Yeah, we can't be held accountable for anything that we say.
Yeah, we're just puppets.
Look, it's no secret that Jeeps are great off-road, obviously, but
No one is arguing that. We're on your side, Jeep owners.
yes, if you've rented a Jeep, if you've driven a Jeep, you know that they're not the best on the road.
I want to give a shout out before we get into it to my friend Ryan Levenhagen, his good friend from long time ago. He just doesn't learn, man. He's on his second Jeep. He got delivery of it. It was a brand new Jeep, and he immediately had to take it into the shop for like an engine rebuild. It was
What?
like within 2 weeks had to.
Oh my God. See, that's what we're talking about here.
When I was a kid, my nickname was Jeep. My whole family called me Jeep.
Because, your initials, right?
Yeah, J-E-P, Jeep.
What's your second middle name?
Eleanor.
Well, welcome to Past Gas, everybody. This is a Jeep podcast today. I'm your host, Nolan Sykes, joined as always by the other hosts of this program. We've got James Pumphrey.
Toot, toot, baby, baby, toot, toot.
And Joe Weber.
Keep it juiced.
And gentlemen, we've already kind of touched on it, but what is your overall impression of the Jeep brand? What are your thoughts on it? What are your feelings? What is your history with this long-standing company?
My dad had a CJ7. I loved it. It had an LSU sticker on the roll bar. Used to ride in the back. Sometimes we'd take the doors off. Me and my sisters would be back there with a blanket. Great memory.
Nice.
MacGyver drove one. Always thought that was really cool. Contrary to our Instagram presence, I have nothing to do with our Instagram, rather other than like some consulting. I like Jeeps. I think they're fine. We went off-road in Colorado a few months ago, and most of the trucks on the trail were Jeeps.
Yes, they were.
And I think that the fact that something like a Jeep still exists is a very cool thing.
It's super cool.
And it's kind of like one of those things where it's like people are like, cars keep getting bigger. And like, you know, greenhouses in the car keep getting smaller, and like belt lines keep getting higher, and visibility keeps getting worse. And everyone says that's because of safety. And in a world like that, I don't know how Jeeps are still legal and allowed to exist. And I appreciate that. So I am a Jeep fan.
Whoa,
I will say it.
On the record.
I will
okay.
say it. I like Jeeps.
That's a really good point, James.
My experience with Jeeps, I drove my first Jeep maybe a couple years ago. Same dude, Ryan, had a 2007 Wrangler. I loved it from the get-go. It was a lot slower than I imagined it. I don't know why I thought it would be fast, but like, man, it's a slow car.
You can get it with a V8 now.
Yeah. So I'm a big fan of them. And you know, I'm talking smack about the reliability of it, but honestly, I was looking at an XJ before I bought my 4Runner, but I went with the 4Runner because I thought it would be more reliable. And then I had to wait for 6 months for an engine rebuild. So,
Well, that was because your mechanic was a shady.
I don't think he was a shady.
well, I mean, he didn't do anything to the car before I bought it. So it's, you know, I went with what I thought was the more reliable version, and then it turned out to be unreliable. So I'm saying, what do we even know anymore? Nothing matters.
It's like the great James Hetfield said, nothing else matters.
He did say that. So, all right. Well, let's get into it. In war, transportation is a crucial component of strategy. During the late 1930s, Americans who were hanging out in Germany watched as the Nazi soldiers zipped around in their Zundap KS 750 motorcycles, complete with sidecar. The Nazis would roll up to the scene, and one of them, clutching their Steyermannliche Maschinenpistol 40, would hop out of the sidecar quickly, do his awful Nazi business, then jump back in and zip away. Uncle Sam saw how nimble they were and wanted himself some of that action. Back in the 1930s, G.I. Joe was rolling around in multi-ton trucks as they left actual horses behind. But they hadn't scared up a replacement for ponies yet that could handle the diversity of terrain in a battlefield. Dodge, Ford, and even Mack Truck were dumping giant heavy trucks on the post-World War I scene, but they weren't good enough. America needed better. These things were just super blocky and heavy.
Probably skinny tires just sinking into the mud.
Yeah, tires probably so skinny.
It's just so skinny back then.
It's so skinny, just sinking in the mud.
Floating up from the Army brass brainstorming sessions was an idea for a small car that had a low, doorless body that troops could pop in and out of while popping caps in Nazis. The U.S. military, which lacked creativity, were picturing some sort of topless sedan, something like a doorless, roofless Ford Taurus. The military announced they're going to make somebody rich with millions of ordered vehicles if they saw the right prototype. They passed over a ton of goofy designs and eventually had stars in their eyes when they saw the Blitz buggy prototype designed by Carl Probst at the tiny Bantam Car Company in Butler, Pennsylvania. Shout out Butler, Pennsylvania, dude. Go Titans. I'm just taking a swing. I don't know what their team is.
Go Cougars.
Probst had designed the little Jeep in an 18-hour marathon sketching session after hearing the requirements put forth by Uncle Sam. Just sketching away.
Carl, don't you want to eat your soup? No, I'm sketching.
Yeah, graphite pencil in one hand, freaking corncob pipe in the other.
I mean, honestly, the fact that it took this guy 18 hours to draw a Jeep.
I didn't think about that.
It's a rectangle in two circles.
Yeah, tracks. With pencil and paper turned into a prototype, the Army was totally blown away. The 1,840-pound buggy was sturdy like a wombat. The only shortcoming in the Army's eyes was the motor. The Army snatched the beloved Bantam design out of Probst's lead-stained hands and gave it to the fellas at Willis Overland, who were known for their snazzy passenger cars and great engines. They tasked Joseph Frazier with improving the four-cylinder so the troops wouldn't have to worry about giving the buggy too many beans and blowing it out.
Baby, I hear the blues are calling, toss salads and scrambled eggs. Frazier.
Frazier called upon ex-Studebaker chief engineer Delmar Barney Roos
Hell yeah.
to perfect the motor design. Roos, through 2 years of R&D time at the engine block, and with some tougher alloys, aluminum pistons, and a light flywheel, he pulled it off. He wound up creating the Go Devil Willis Inline 4. It was a 134 cubic inch block with an L-head design with parallel valves. The Go Devil made 60 horsepower at 4,000 RPM
Nice.
and a stump-ripping 105 foot-pounds of torque at 2,000 RPM with 6.48 to 1 compression.
That's such low compression.
That's super low.
Dude, that's reliability, boys.
That's true. It's true.
The Army was so impressed by the performance of the prototype that they took the Bantam design Willis had improved on and handed it right over to Henry Ford so he could start churning out the Nazi-stomping Jeeps. Because if you want anyone designing something to fight Nazis, it's Henry Ford.
Yeah, let me stop writing my anti-Semitic newspaper.
Yeah.
Okay, so apparently at Ford, there's a vault that holds all of their like film, like every Ford commercial, it's like a media vault. And there's a safe inside the vault that has film of Henry Ford hanging out with Hitler.
Sheesh.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think they should have been tipped off when the key to the Jeep was a swastika.
Why would you hold on to something like that? Why not just like destroy it?
Because I think at some point, like they're like, it's kind of cool. When they started the Jeep, a little voice said, "Let's go easy on them, boys." They've got some fair points.
Yeah, there's good guys over there.
The trains run on time.
This episode of Past Gas is sponsored by BetterHelp. This podcast is sponsored by BetterHelp Online Therapy. Check out betterhelp.com/pastgas. Life, it's full of stressors. You guys know what I'm talking about. You know, whether it's a relationship stuff, job stuff, commuting. Stress is normal for everyone to feel. BetterHelp is customized online therapy that offers video, phone, and even live chat sessions with your therapist, so you don't have to see anyone on camera if you don't want to. It's much more affordable than in-person therapy, and you can start communicating with your therapist in under 48 hours. Unload the stressors and get some unbiased feedback, and you'd be pretty surprised at what you might gain from it. See if it's for you. I think it's really important that everyone does therapy. It's really important for mental health. I feel like there's a stigma around it, but there doesn't need to be because it's really normal. I really think BetterHelp is a great service. It's so easy to find therapists that can help you out, and BetterHelp is the best option for therapy. This podcast is sponsored by BetterHelp, and Past Gas by Donut Media listeners get 10% off their first month at betterhelp.com/pastgas. That's BetterHelp.com/pastgas. Thank you, BetterHelp.
However, the times were a-changin' over at Ford. By the time the military put in their order, Hitler's favorite auto manufacturer had been sidelined at the Detroit plant due to dementia. His company, on the other hand, was ready to rock and roll and start pumping out Jeeps that they were now giving the politically not-so-correct name of Ford Pygmies. Ford, using Willys' exact design, cobbled together 640,000 Jeeps during World War II. And despite Willys a bit, they stamped an F on literally every component of the trucks, including the bolt heads.
Whoa.
It seems like that would have hindered production. They also stamped Ford across the back like they were sending them to dealerships and not to hand Hitler a big freedom-sized ass kicking. Willys saw what Ford was doing and in turn started writing Willys across their tailgates, until the government told them both to knock it off and stop advertising on their war machines. That's awesome. The Jeeps cost Uncle Sam $782.59 per unit, or about $12,000 today. For comparison, today, the military drives armored joint-like tactical vehicles, basically Hummers, and they cost them over $400,000 to produce per unit. You could buy 8 decked-out Jeep Gladiators for that cost. This is the military-industrial complex. Like now, a hammer costs $12,000.
Yeah.
The Jeeps were handed out like candy. Every branch got their hands on them and started customizing them for their own purposes. Some were designed for sawmilling and others as firefighting pumpers and tractors. And some were even designed to lay pipe in the fields.
Hey. Oh.
Ford got a bit more clever and popped some train wheels on Jeeps and sent them zipping down tracks. They also designed a Seep, or a Sea Jeep, which was an amphibious model, as you could have guessed, that sucked as a boat and was made even worse as an off-road vehicle because it had big, goofy-ass boat bits clattering around as it bumped over ruts and potholes. I bet it looks like an upside-down house.
You're not wrong.
Yeah, that's pretty good.
But no matter how ridiculous you made Jeeps look or drive, they did their job well. They were sturdy and nimble machines that stormed Normandy and scared the hell out of Hitler. The mustachioed madman was stuck driving around in the Ferdinand Porsche designed Wagon, which means bucket car in German, which is worse than the Jeep in almost every way. It had half the horsepower and 14 more inches of wheelbase. Plus, despite being designed by Ferdinand Porsche, it looked like a bucket.
Yeah, these are, if you've seen a Volkswagen Thing,
Yeah.
it's basically a military version, one of those.
And it had 30 horsepower? That's rough.
That's not even enough horsepower for babies. After the war was won, these Jeeps continued to make an impact. The U.S. left tens of thousands of vehicles scattered across the fields of France and the rest of Europe, not just as a thank you parting gift, but because, shipping things is expensive.
Le Jeep.
Hey, le Jeep. Hey, I will fill this with my grips to put it in a bucket, and I will stomp it with my feet, and then I will put the juice in a barrel, and then I will put the barrel back in my Jeep, and then I will take it to my cellar, and I will put it in the cellar for multiple years, and then I will poke a hole in it, and I will taste it, and I will eat it with cheese.
You sound like the vampire from What We Do in the Shadows, the Turkish guy.
Oh, yeah. You didn't even need keys to start the Jeeps. French teenagers rejoiced as they took the chance to joyride around town.
Oh, hell yeah.
Their more responsible parents also took a liking to the light-duty trucks, with many turning the little things into versatile farm vehicles. Pre-war, it was difficult to find a decent tractor in France because Ferruccio Lamborghini was still growing grapes and hadn't started building tractors yet. Within a few months, the Jeeps had been put to work rebuilding France's agricultural industry. J'aime le Jeep. We assume they said.
What does that mean?
It means I like the Jeep.
Ah.
They said that there's a starter on next to the clutch or something.
And next to
Like it
the
was a foot
pedals,
pedal?
there's a little foot ignition. Like a little
That's
button.
cool as hell.
Yeah.
Why don't they bring that back? Hey, John Jeep, if you're listening to me.
John Jeeple Jingleheimer Schmidt.
Wake up, Jeep.
Wake up, Jeeple.
Once Hitler was dead.
Allegedly.
And the French are able to breathe free, the American troops also went home with fond memories of their little trucks that carted them around Europe. Up to that point, there weren't many nimble cars on the road. Tastes pre-war had run in favor of giant sedans, predominantly owned by wealthy elites. But now the common Joe had a taste for driving freedom and wanted more of it.
Look, let's stop with this Joe slurring, okay? G.I. Joe. I'm not General
There's no
Issue
such
Joe.
thing as an average Joe, all right?
Yeah. Sloppy Joe.
Medium
Come
Joe.
on. Joes are the original Karens.
No.
Joes are the original Kyles.
Sure.
Chad.
No, we've never been Chads. Sorry, other Joes listening, but we're not Chads.
The respect for Jeep was everywhere. Even Enzo Ferrari said that the Jeep was the best sports car America ever made. Now that I read that out loud,
That's a dig.
I had to. I knew this was going to come. Supposedly, the quote is that Enzo said that the Jeep was the only true American sports car. And this has been used in like marketing a lot from Jeep and like other places. But it looks like he didn't actually say that.
Really?
Yeah. That's according to Hemmings.com.
Who would have made that up?
Because even if he did say that, I think they don't get the joke.
No. And that's,
he's not saying Jeeps are good. He's saying that like Fords suck. That's what he's saying.
Exactly.
If he said that at all.
Yeah.
Willis HQ responded to the demand and doubled down on the Jeep line of vehicles. They obtained the full rights to the Jeep name and started cranking out all kinds of Jeep variants. Willis started with the Jeep station wagon in 1946, and the next year they started pumping out Jeep trucks that looked like a two-door version of the current Jeep Gladiator. Then in 1948, Willis released the Jeepster, which looked like a cross between an MG and a VW thing. The base model hooked up drivers with what 1940s folks referred to as the deluxe equipment. This included white wall tires, hubcaps, and sun visors.
Nice.
you throw some white walls on that. That looks pretty swell.
Oh man, this thing is
dude, let's bring back swell.
Swell.
That's
Dude, that car looks swell, dude.
Dude, this looks like a car that the Great Gatsby ran over that woman with.
Do you always find a way to bring that reference back up?
The Jeepster was what economists call a cash grab, and they were hoping there were a bunch of people who wanted an open-top roadster but didn't mind if it drove like a piece of farm equipment. And, much like the Jeeps of today, you could get a hell of a lot more vehicle by walking across the street to a Ford dealership. The Jeepster had a $1,765 price tag, but you can get a Ford Super Deluxe that had a real roof, roll-down windows, fancy styling, and a V8 for $1,440, so more than $300 less. And that was a lot back then. The Jeepster was only available in rear-wheel drive, so Jeep enthusiasts at the time found it to be a bit of a bummer. The boxy styling was a turnoff to non-Jeep enthusiasts. So at the end of the day, there was no real market for the wee Jeepster, and it fell flat. In many ways, it was the first red flag in the Jeep story, and would set the pattern for Jeep's shortcomings in the future. Yeah, this thing is dog ugly, dude.
It's pretty bad.
I bet Max loves it.
Oh, for sure. Oh, dude, I found a Jeepster on Craigslist. It's only $17,000.
It's only $17,000. I'm gonna buy it for my friend Kyle as a joke. Don't.
Willis Overland didn't take the lesson to heart. Even though they were selling Jeeps like hotcakes, doubled down on the passenger car market again, and built the Willis Aero Sedan, which looks like the useless offspring of a Bel Air and a Corvair. The little car flopped so hard, Willis got sold to Kaiser Motors, who killed the Aero to refocus on building the Jeeps that everyone loved.
I kind of like it. It's like a little Rambler.
Oh, interesting. Okay, so this isn't really a Jeep product.
It looks like Mickey Mouse's car.
Yeah. This would make a sick drag car for sure.
Oh, yeah, dude.
Fly.
God, that guy with the big mustache would love this car.
Dennis Page, thank you.
Great.
For the next 20 years, it would be Kaiser pumping out the Jeeps, and they made some of the same mistakes as Willis, using their name too. And they started developing different iterations of the Jeep, like the CJ, the Gladiator, and they even reintroduced the Jeepster. They caught on a bit better this time around, and they had some moderate success, especially with the Wagoneer.
We had a Wagoneer when I was a kid. Oh my God, I'm a Jeep guy.
But as the auto industry does, Kaiser got bought out by AMC in 1970, and they streamlined the models and made the parts interchangeable with their lineup of mediocre cars. Jeep became the Jeep Corporation, but they're still at the mercy of whoever owned the brand. And if you'd like to know more about AMC's time with Jeep, check out our two-part series on the murder of AMC's CEO by anarchists.
And if you want to learn more about AMC, check out the two-part article on our sister site, The Drive. That's right, baby. We're in the same family as the Drive now. We're about
Nice
to take
plug.
over the world. Dude, I would love to have like a Grand Wagoneer, like an old one, and like put modern stuff in it, like a nice, like a Hemi.
Do you like the new Wagoneer?
Yeah, it's a big SUV.
It's a big honker.
Big old
It's
honker.
enormous. The Grand Wagoneer is insanely big.
Yeah.
It's a big old sweaty honker. It's a big old hog.
Big thanks to Valvoline for sponsoring this episode of Past Gas. Valvoline was the first motor oil brand, making it the original motor oil. They've been doing it since 1866. That's a long time. And Valvoline scientists have been innovating, creating, and reinventing formulas since then. Some of those innovations are the first high mileage oil, the first racing oil, and the first synthetic blend. But what you might not know is that Valvoline also makes some pretty amazing coolants, like Xerox coolant. Xerox from Valvoline is the #1 selling OEM approved coolant brand that's proven to maximize engine life, just like their oils. It provides better protection against the 4 main causes of cooling system failure, which is why engines break down, basically. Put the good stuff in your car. That's why I use Xerox. I put Xerox coolant in my 4Runner and it's been running great. I've had no issues with it. I love Valvoline products. I use them in my car all the time. I use the Xerox coolant. I use their high mileage oil in my 4Runner. I really could not be happier with it. Thanks, Valvoline.
As the 70s became the 80s and the oil crisis came and went, Jeep changed hands from AMC to Renault and eventually to Chrysler. They replaced the fan favorite CJ with the Wrangler. Even though everything had changed, diehard Jeepers remained loyal. It's still a superior off-road vehicle compared to other SUVs out there, and it's still an icon, just like Jaden Smith. The resale value of Jeeps is completely insane. Jeepers buy, sell, and trade their trucks at inflated prices, even though every consumer watchdog is sounding alarm bells about the build quality. Last year, Consumer Reports slammed the Wrangler with a 28 out of 100 rating in the SUV class. For comparison, the Subaru Outback, which is the opposite of a truck, earned an 87 in the same group, and the Kia Telluride scored a 92. A 28 isn't just failing. A 28 is the kid in class that smells, and you got to talk to him. You got to be like, hey, Andy, you got to start wearing deodorant, bud. People are talking about you. The only reason the Wrangler squeaked by with an F was because Consumer Reports really liked the Jeep's classic styling and that the radio had great phone connectivity. They also loved the rugged 4x4 look and feel. Sure, you can still fold down the front windshield, a great feature on the World War II Jeep that allowed you to shoot Nazis without hurting your truck. But now you just kind of spend 30 minutes unscrewing things and then fold the glass down. The A-pillars and roofline stay in its place so you don't get crushed in a rollover. And like they don't provide like a strap or anything for you to like.
We had to ratchet strap the windshield down when we were in Colorado, right?
Really?
Yeah.
Weird.
Where the original Jeep was known for its reliability, the Wrangler has lost the thread. Within a few months of the 2020 model being released, a few very serious recalls were issued, each a bit scarier than last. First, the backup camera stays on for a long time. Then they announced a recall that dealt with fuel leaks that happened near an ignition source.
That's not good.
No, that's bad. And as any good caveman knows, you don't want sparks near your openly spraying fuel. Then Jeep put out a warning that their clutches heat up faster than a hot pocket and are at risk for crumbling under the pressure and dropping debris all over the road. The debris being all the bits around the clutch that help the car stay driving. Another recall for the Wrangler was for the weld attaching the lower control arms to the axle, which you don't need to be a mechanic to realize is a crucial part of any vehicle, especially one that's marked for use off the pavement.
I heard of, there's like horror stories in r/cars, and some dude spent basically as much money as you can spend on a Jeep. It was like a Rubicon Gladiator with all the bells and whistles. And he wanted it as like a little like adventure car that he could tow with his RV. And he picked it up at the dealership, attached it to his RV, kept the center diff locked, and towed it for like 10 miles or something, and completely blew the transmission, like the drive, everything was just shredded, like right off the dealer lot.
That's his fault.
Yeah. Oh, totally.
And it wasn't just the newest Jeeps with issues. Older Jeeps were plagued with wiring issues and were often not so tastefully modified in garage hack jobs that left them barely running or ultra squirrely on the pavement. Again, that's not on Jeep. Someone cutting up a car isn't the manufacturer's fault. The squirreliness gets even worse. There's a phenomenon called the Death Wobble. This occurs on Jeeps that are both stock and modified. It's basically when the whole Jeep starts shaking violently in an uncontrollable way.
Sounds like me when I'm sad.
Oh no, Joe. This is because of the Jeep's solid front axle. This isn't a phenomenon you see in independent front suspension.
Well, Nolan, there's no one single cause for the Jeep Death Wobble, but it can be started with a simple bump over a pothole or small rock. It's typically blamed on bad steering stabilizers or poorly installed shocks and struts, but other things like worn tie rods, idler arms, wheel bearings, track bar, ball joints, an off alignment tire pressure, leaning too far to the left, or driving on the street can all contribute to the Death Wobble.
That's a lot of things.
It's a common enough issue that there are a few class action lawsuits pending against Jeep over said Death Wobble. There have also been service bulletins issued on Jeeps in hopes of correcting the issue, but a service bulletin isn't a recall. It's basically just a strong suggestion that they don't bother telling anyone about unless they ask. Despite all of this, Jeep still sells a few 100,000 Wranglers a year, about 800,000 other vehicles. Their sales are as trailblazing as the Jeep used to be. The brand was built on the idea of freedom, built purely at its source by the bloodshed and sacrifice of the greatest generation while they killed Nazis. World War II was the greatest PR campaign any product could ever hope for. They parachuted Jeeps onto the beaches of Normandy for the whole world to see. Jeeps were driven into Paris as the city was freed. Concentration camp gates were torn down with chains hooked to the bumpers of Jeeps driven by American soldiers. There hasn't been a product that has gotten that kind of free press ever. And even with all of that, Jeep kind of squandered it. They fell into the same trap everyone else did in the 80s and 90s, turning into SUV makers. That's where the problem lies. Most modern SUVs drive like cars. They get decent gas mileage and handle like big cars. The Wrangler puts itself in the SUV class and competes with other off-road vehicles like the Land Rover Defender, Toyota 4Runner, and the new Bronco. And while the Wrangler is in the same price class as those vehicles, it lacks their amenities across the board.
It does have insanely hot heat. Like when I was driving in my friend's, he turned on the heat on low and it was like melting my hand as I was going to shut the vent because it was too hot.
I love hot heat. Bandages.
I used to, my high school girlfriend, I used to sing that song, but I would say sausages. And
oh man, I bet she thought it was so funny, man.
She giggled so hard.
Oh man, if I could be a fly on that wall. Performance-wise, the Wrangler falls behind its competitors. Comfort-wise, it also comes up stiff. And in almost every other metric like storage, handling, braking, etc., it all falls short. The new Bronco even specs out better off-road packages than the Wrangler, which should be shameful at this point, but it won't matter because Jeep will still keep selling Jeeps as they get further and further away from the original idea. The Wrangler is the only tie back to the original Jeep, and the rest are a pure simulation of what Jeeps used to be.
The appeal of the Jeep is, I think, pretty simple. Is because even if you buy a stock Wrangler with open diffs, you can go to a lot of places. You know, they're very capable still in that form, the Wrangler. Like we said, we rented one for the high-low finale. That was our production vehicle. It carried all our cameras and a bunch of equipment and other crap.
Yeah, it didn't have locking diffs, and it went everywhere that our heavily modified Toyota Tacomas went.
Yeah, except for that last obstacle. But that was it. I was super impressed. But you take that same vehicle on the road, and it's not very good, man.
It's dog slow, super loud.
Yeah, and just the
they don't paint the ceiling.
they
just white fiberglass.
All like the knobs and everything, like the interior just feels very blocky.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
It's like a Call of Duty menu from like 2013.
Nice.
But I think if you buy a Wrangler or any sort of Jeep, you don't really care about that. At least if you buy the Wrangler, you don't care about the on-road quality. Even if you only go off-road once a year or once the entire time you own it, you know that you can do all that stuff. That's the appeal of Jeep. The Wrangler, at least. All the other ones I'm not so sure about. But the Wrangler it's a very capable vehicle despite all of its faults and, manufacturing errors and reliability, blah, blah, blah. The Jeep owners know that.
They look cool.
They look
that
cool.
Too.
And you know what? With anything that gets as popular as the Jeep, people are going to push back on every little thing.
Name besides the Bronco, name another car you can take the doors off of. You can freaking put the windshield down. That's it.
That is pretty sick.
Yeah, birds can fly directly into your face.
Yeah, it's 2022 and you can take the doors off of this thing. But we want to hear from you guys, our listeners. So putting aside the memes that we post on Instagram, we're honestly just joking. What do you guys think about Jeeps? Let us know by emailing pastgas@donutmedia.com, and we might read your response on a future episode.
I for one think that Jeeps are amazing.
They're amazing?
They're amazing.
Oh,
sorry. We're doing a campaign with Omaze right now. That was super corny. I get it. But our producer was like, I'm going to beat you if you don't mention Omaze in this. So, I think we're doing a campaign with Omaze right now. We're giving away a Jeep. All you got to do is enter at omaze.com.
That's right. It's a 392 Wrangler. So it's got the V8 and it's got some other modifications like big tires and some nice suspension and all of that. And as proof that we read your emails, we got a response from Josh.
Josh, dude, classic.
This is in regards to our Carlos Ghosn episode. Hey guys, I think Nolan's is the wisest take on this.
Did he write this email, Nolan?
No. Clearly, Ghosn is responsible for some shady stuff, but at the same time, Nissan is very much responsible for some as well. And Ghosn is not wrong about the enormous problems with the Japanese legal system. But this is such a complicated case, and I honestly think the most important parts are being overlooked. It's not really about Ghosn at all. It's about Nissan. And in fact, about Japanese business and the future of Japan generally. As Joe sensibly mentioned, incompetently deleted emails basically prove the rest of Nissan's upper management decided to close ranks and force Ghosn and Kelly out. That means Nissan's current management have basically staged a corporate coup, escaped all culpability for their part in the fraudulent accounting, and basically got away with it. But hey, Josh adds, the 400Z is coming, so that's cool, right?
Josh,
thank you, Josh. Dude, Josh with the take, man. Very, very well said.
Well, you got called wise and Joe got called sensible. I didn't get called anything. And Josh.
Josh, you're cool, man.
Email us again at passgas@donutmedia.com if you want to maybe get your email read on the air. Make sure to compliment James.
Yeah, that's how you'll get it.
Follow the boys at James Pumphrey, at Joe G. Weber, me, at Nolan J. Sykes. Big thank you to our producer, Thomas Willett, Gavin Kinzel, and our writer this week, Jacob Desjardins. Thank you, everyone who makes this show possible, and thank you to you for making this show possible. All right. Goodbye.
I love you.
Champagne for my real friends, real pain for my sham friends.
Yeah. Here's all that wish us well, and everyone else go to hell.
Be kind. See you next time.